Hello, everybody. I am back for another movie review, and this time I'm going to review a film that, honestly, I really, as soon as I think after I had done Time Bandits, this was a movie that suddenly came into my attention or came into mind immediately after I thought about it. And maybe it's because this movie also debuted the same year as Time Bandits, and this film is Excalibur. Excalibur is a fantasy medieval adventure film that came out back in 1981, directed by filmmaker John Borman, and the film is basically based on an epic, not an epic story or epic poem called Le Morte d'Arthur, if I said it right. It was written by Sir Thomas Malory, and this came out back in like the 15th or 16th century. It basically is a epic story about the rise and fall rise and fall of King Arthur himself. And basically, all the elements include, removing the sword Excalibur from the stone, the Round Table's noble birth and decline, heroic attempts to recover the Holy Grail when Arthur becomes horribly ill and he sends his knights out to retrieve the Grail so he can recover. Yeah, the legendary sword Excalibur, which is a weapon that was forged not by man, but yet, who knows where it came from? Was it forged by the gods? Since it's a weapon that basically is unbreakable. Interesting. But yeah, all the interesting elements are shown here in this movie. Basically everything, and there's even more, like way more. But the movie itself, yeah, like I said, it's an epic saga, basically about the rise and fall of a kingdom. But nonetheless, the way it's done is just beautiful in almost every way. The acting is almost spot on. The performances, the characters, the wardrobes, the costumes they wear, the production design, the look of the film. It just has that timeless look that just never, it just like refuses to age. I mean, I don't know, for some strange reason, this movie is almost like a time capsule that brings us back to, the old days of how filmmaking used to be. It almost is. This movie is like a perfect time capsule. The film, like I said, was released in 1981. It was released by Warner Brothers and Orion Pictures back when they were merged together. They've actually released a few movies together. Like they also put out Caddyshack is another film they've done. So yeah, they put out a few movies like that. The movie was released theatrically in '81 and ultimately did enjoy a rather decent theatrical run. The movie was made on a budget of somewhere between probably around 5 to maybe 12 or 13 million dollars. And in the States alone, it grossed a little over 30 odd million. So the movie was profitable. It was met with some mixed criticism at the time. Some people complained about, there was a few things they complained about, like, some people complained about the violence, some people complained about the sex and nudity. Some people, even at the time, some of them thought the acting was a bit hammy. But honestly, the way I look at it at the time, the way I look at it now, honestly, all those elements have held up very well. And for people that complain that Excalibur is a bit too violent, especially for an R-rated film, tell them to go watch Braveheart. And Braveheart makes Excalibur look like a high school picnic or a Sunday school picnic. That's what it looks like. But honestly, though, this film, I think, has held up with all that. And did get recognition at the Academy Awards, picking up only one nomination for cinematography, because the movie, I'm not going to lie, very beautifully shot. And honestly, Excalibur has loads of iconic imagery. So much iconic imagery that even to this day, director Zack Snyder actually considers Excalibur his personal favorite movie of all time. In fact, there are at least a few movies in which Zack Snyder actually threw in Excalibur references. 300 has one. Batman vs. Superman has actually two Excalibur references. Right at the beginning of the film, right before Thomas and Martha Wayne are both shot, they're exiting a movie theater, and on the movie theater marquee has the word Excalibur, and if you look closely at the wall, you can actually see the original poster art for Excalibur printed up on the wall. Pretty impressive. And at the end of the movie, there's even an Excalibur reference. I will not give the spoiler away for anybody that has yet to see Excalibur, but obviously, if you've seen Batman vs. Superman, then you probably know what I'm talking about. But yeah, Excalibur really was a film that did influence many people. And like I said, Zack Snyder, especially him, because this movie really just. So, how did this movie come into existence? Because apparently, John Boorman said that he'd been trying to get this movie made for a long time. The funny thing is, right after John Boorman finished up filming Exorcist II, The Heretic, after that came out in 1977, the funny thing is, John Boorman originally wanted to do a film adaptation of The Lord of the Rings, which is, many filmmakers have attempted to do that in the past, long before Peter Jackson came along, but of course, he chose to take all three books in the Lord of the Rings trilogy and he tried to adapt it into one giant movie. And unfortunately, that fell apart about as quick as it came. But there are some sequences in Excalibur that were meant for John Boorman's failed Lord of the Rings movie. In fact, there's a sequence in the film that was actually a couple of scenes that were originally meant for his Lord of the Rings movie, which never happened. And then, of course, in 1978, Ralph Bakshi made his animated Lord of the Rings movie, which got mixed opinions and results, but nonetheless being a profitable hit regardless. So he eventually moved on and ultimately he went from Lord of the Rings to doing eventually Excalibur, which, and of course, if anybody knows who John Boorman is, he had done some interesting movies. Up to that point, he was probably known for doing Deliverance, obviously. And of course, one of the most bizarre science fiction films I've ever seen, Zardoz. And of course, possibly one of the worst one of the worst sequels of all time, Exorcist II, The Heretic. Yeah, one of these days I'll eventually talk about that. And then eventually he did a great Emerald Forest, another great movie, by the way, and Hope and Glory, which I've yet to see, but I've heard a lot of great stuff about. So he kind of John Boorman has had ups and downs throughout his career, but honestly, though, Excalibur might just be his MO, his magnum opus. This might be possibly the best film he ever directed. It truly is a work of art. And also, this movie has a fine cast of actors, too. Nigel Terry playing Arthur, the great Nicole Williamson playing Merlin. If anybody doesn't know who he is, he's probably best known. Anybody who's a fan of Return to Oz will know him as the Gnome King. And if anybody had seen the live-action Spawn movie, he played Cagliostro from Spawn, which, by the way, was his final film appearance before he left acting. Helen Mirren, by the way, who played Morgana, this was actually one of her first movies. She actually is still acting to this day. She's going to be in the Shazam sequel, which I'm actually looking forward to seeing. The movie also has a first, like Patrick Stewart, Gabriel Byrne, and Liam Neeson. Believe it or not, this was the very first movie they ever appeared in. And even actor Ciaran Hinds, if I pronounced his name right. If I didn't, I apologize. He's probably best known. Game of Thrones fans will know him as the Lord of the Wildlings from Game of Thrones. This was also his first movie, too. His name's on the back cover here, But yeah, Patrick Stewart, Gabriel Byrne, Liam Neeson, this was the first movie they ever did. Gabriel Byrne played Uther in the film. Patrick Stewart played Leondegrans. And Liam Neeson played Sir Gawain, who was the knight that accused the queen of adultery in the movie. But yeah, everybody you can recognize pretty easily. So yeah, it's pretty awesome to see that they have all. Patrick Stewart, yeah, he's still acting. Last year he was in. He came back to play Charles Xavier again for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and of course the TV show Star Trek Picard. Liam Neeson, yeah, I'm pretty sure he's still working in movies. Gabriel Byrne, I don't hear too much about him anymore. I don't know what happened to him. But yeah, he continued to make funny, speaking of Ralph Bakshi, Gabriel Byrne actually did go on to work with Ralph Bakshi on Cool World. Almost a decade after Excalibur. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. Overall, yeah, That's pretty neat though that they actually made their first movie with this film. Yeah, the film did also get Saturn nominations. It picked up a few. The film did win the Saturn Award for costumes. As I look back on the movie, I'm thinking, man, cinematography was the only Oscar nomination this film received, and that's it. Well, yeah, I mean, the film was beautifully shot. I mean, what about production design? What about costume design? If the film got a Saturn nomination for costumes, how come it didn't receive an Oscar nomination? I don't know. So let's talk about the Blu-ray. Honestly, this Blu-ray came out in 2011, I believe. So this film is celebrating this Blu-ray is celebrating the movie's 30th anniversary. And honestly, Warner Brothers I think did a fairly decent job with this movie. So inside here's the Blu-ray, which is pretty cool. Kind of like the artwork on it, which just looks just like the case itself, which is pretty impressive. And as you can see, it's like I said, I take excellent care of my Blu-ray discs, and honestly, this one's in really good shape. The video quality, the movie is presented in 185 by 1. Sorry, let me adjust it if I can. There we go. Yeah, it's presented in 185 by 1 widescreen, and honestly, for a movie that's actually just turned 42 years old now, honestly, Excalibur looks really good in high def. Now, this is one that's going to be a bit of a polarizing thing because some people actually complain about the movie not looking so great on Blu-ray. There's people that have like, oh, Excalibur is terrible looking in high def. Honestly, if you were to know about the shooting conditions of this movie, then you really wouldn't be complaining that much. Honestly, Excalibur looks absolutely gorgeous in high def. In fact, it makes the VHS and DVD versions look obsolete. This is arguably the best I've ever seen the film look. It looks beautiful. There's detail that I've never noticed before in this version compared to any of the previous ones. This is actually a much better looking film than most people make it out to be. But given the fact that I learned that the shooting conditions of the film were actually not really that great because apparently it rained almost constantly during the shooting of the film. So many of the shots that look muggy or foggy or a bit like, glossy looking, it's because, it just rained. So it's gonna have that oddball look. But you know what? It fits the film perfectly. And honestly, there's like I said, detail that I've never noticed before in this release of the film compared to any of the previous versions. So, out of a rating of 5 stars for the Blu-ray, I honestly would have to give the movie probably maybe out of 5 stars, probably a 4.5 out of 5. And I'm being very generous with the movie too. But then again, some people are going to complain that it doesn't look as good as that. But give this movie a shot, and once you learn about the shooting conditions or read up about it, or even listen to John Boorman's commentary as he does explain about that, I mean, you'll probably, be a bit more generous on why the film looks the way it does. But for me, out of 5 stars, definitely a 4.5. That's how well the film looks. As for the audio, the audio is presented in DTS 5.1, and we got a couple of additional tracks here. We got a French track, a Spanish track, both Castilian and Latin. So the English 5.1 track, DTS track is the one, of course, I listened to, and honestly, it sounds pretty good. I don't think it sounds as good as the film looks, but honestly, though, it sounds pretty decent. The dialogue comes out very well. Sound effects may appear a bit muffled. I mean, it's one of those films where you think the audio would sound as good, but honestly, I think it sounds pretty decent for what it is. So I would have to, because I remember reading on Blu-ray.com, out of 5 stars, they gave the audio a 2.5 out of 5. I don't think it's that bad. The audio is definitely better than that. It's way better. I would say out of 5 stars, I would probably give the audio maybe 3.5 out of 5. 3.5. Still sounds good for a DTS track, but it's definitely not as good as the film looks. But still, it's actually a good sounding track. It really is. As for the bonus features, well, basically, it's funny because all it says back here is the commentary with John Boorman, but there's also the film's trailer, which is included on the Blu-ray too. I don't know why the trailer's not included. It's basically the same batch of extras that came from the DVD edition. Yeah, John Borman provides audio commentary for the movie, and it's actually interesting to hear the guy talk about his own film. And he does retain a good amount of memory working on the movie, lots of it. The commentary I think was recorded back in I think '99. That's when the DVD version came out. So yeah, this obviously is a dated commentary, but also it does provide a lot of interesting info about the movie itself. There are a few drawn out moments where there's like moments of dead silence where he doesn't talk at all, but he does retain some good information about the movie and does talk about the shooting conditions of the film and explains why the film looks the way it does. So honestly, it's actually a fun commentary to listen to if you're a fan of the movie. So as for the extras, out of 5 stars, probably gets a 2 out of 5. Just for the commentary alone. The trailer is a nice addition as well. But then again, I think any movie on Blu-ray or DVD or 4K should come with the trailer as an extra. It's like an absolute guarantee that it has to come with a trailer. I don't know why they wouldn't include it in the first place. It really would have been nice for the 30th anniversary to include a more retro documentary with interviews with any of the surviving actors, because that would have been nice to do too. But alas, all Warner Brothers really seem to do is just give the film a high-def release, and that's really it. I could rate the movie out of 5 stars myself, but honestly, I think I'm going to stop doing that, and I'm just going to simply say Excalibur is an absolute must-see. This is a well-rounded out, well-made film. Probably one of the best medieval movies I've ever seen. I would definitely rank it up there with I'd definitely rank it up there with Braveheart as one of the best medieval films ever made. Literally. And I would dare say I would also put Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves up there, because that's also one of my favorite films. Yes, the Kevin Costner movie. I'd rank it up there with those as well, because I love that movie so much. But, my opinion, so... But yes, is Excalibur worth watching? Oh, yes, it is. Definitely worth watching. Great movie, great cast, great visuals, even a great score too by Trevor Jones. But much of the music in the film is obviously composed of music done in the past that was rescored or reused for this movie. And again, the Blu-ray release of the film, it's actually a solid release. The video is gorgeous. The audio, not as strong, but still sounds great. The extras, like I said, not a lot of material, but the commentary is definitely worth a listen if you're a fan. So overall, it's actually not a bad Blu-ray release of the movie. It definitely trumps all the previous versions of the film. So if you can find the Blu-ray at a good price, which I believe it is, I'd say pick up a copy of this movie. You won't regret it. Yeah, it's a bit lengthy at 141 minutes, but believe me, it's definitely worth the price, whatever you can find it for. So definitely worth a watch. Great movie. Definitely recommended. So, this concludes the presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will continue to do more videos in the days to come. If anybody has a request on what I should review, please, by all means, give me a shout out. Just to let you know that if it's a suggestion, if it's a movie that I don't own, unfortunately I can't review it, so if I own it, then I will definitely review it. So until then, take care and be safe. And dream. A dream to some, a nightmare to others!